What's up, everybody? This is James from the Timur podcast, and today I have another faction overview for the mod Tsardoms Total War 1448 Fall of Constantinople, which is a mod for the video game Medieval 2 Total War. And what we've been doing is kind of going through each one of these factions one by one, just looking at their who they are, their starting position, their unit roster, and just them as a faction as a whole. So today we are looking at the Principality of Moldova, which you can see up here, kind of on the northwestern corner of the Black Sea, kind of towards the northern border of the campaign map. And the Principality of Moldova, they have a special place in my heart because when I first downloaded this mod, they were the first faction that I played as. As such, I decided to take a look at them today. And if this video seems a bit rushed, I didn't have as much time to prepare it, so just bear with me. Anyway, let's get started. Let's look at the Principality of Moldova. They start with 5 settlements. They are Orthodox Christian, no allies, and they are at war with Crimea, the Crimean Khanate. So if we take a look at them over here, you can see they're kind of way over in the corner of the map here. Looking back at Moldova, then for the historical background, I'll kind of just go through this sort of quickly in case you want to pause and read. But basically, Moldova is not in the greatest of positions. There is a lot of internal strife about who the rightful leader is, as well as lots of enemies all around you. Most specifically, the Kingdom of Poland. Hold on, let me just scroll through this. All right, perfect. The Kingdom of Poland over here, you can see they border you pretty much directly. Your northern borders, your northern territories are touching the Polish kingdom. And then the Kingdom of Hungary is kind of all around you in a way. They are right on the other side of the Carpathian Mountains, as well as they have control of Chile or one of the, I don't know how to say that settlement's name, but a very valuable port on the Black Sea the Moldovans gave to the Hungarians in 1447 or something like that. So the Hungarians are right next to you, and historically you've kind of been under Polish and Hungarian influence back and forth, with them in some cases setting up the ruler of Moldova. So they both want to extend their reach more into your territory, and war with either one or possibly both of those factions is likely. But we'll talk more about your neighbors and whatnot when we get to the campaign map. As far as Moldovan strengths, it says excellent light cavalry, very true. Good mix of skilled foot and horse archers. I would say more so on the foot archers than the horse archers, but we'll see more about that later. Good defensive, ambush, and hit and run faction, that's very true. Weaknesses, lack of heavy infantry, somewhat, yeah, and then lack of late era professional units, that is definitely true. You are a great early and mid campaign faction. That's a terrible sentence. You do struggle in the later game. And then for winning conditions, for the long game, hold 35 regions, including all of these. And for the short game, you only need 15 regions, including most of your starting position, as well as a few neighboring positions, which we will see in just a second. So that is it for the intro. Let's look at the campaign map. Alright, so here we are on the campaign map, and I just wanted to read a little bit of this. Moldova has been ravaged by civil war and by foreign interventions. Things have gotten so bad that at one point the Polish and Hungarians considered partitioning Moldova between themselves. And I'll scroll through this in case you want to read it. But yeah, things are not looking good for Moldova. You have enemies both internally and externally, and a lot of people want your land. And then, of course, with this mod being in 1448, the Ottoman Turks are also on your doorstep, and you'll inevitably run into them. Anyway, okay, let's take a look at where you start. So this is the opening screen. You will see you start with 9,000 gold, which is actually a pretty decent amount. They're quite a few factions that start with less than that. And the other nice thing is most of your settlements are pretty centrally located. They are near to each other, so you can send reinforcements fairly easily. In the north, you got a couple smaller settlements. You have one here, which is, there's no garrison, and then over here, you have just some border riders. They're an okay unit. We'll take a look at them later. But this is really nice because with the Polish up here, oh, you know what? I didn't turn off the fog of war. You can see Poland has quite a few settlements right on your northern border, including some formidable armies. Now, they usually do attack the rebels to the north first, but in most of my playthroughs, Poland and Moldova do go to war, and Poland usually instigates that. So I would say Poland is your #1 threat, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get back to just your starting positions. So looking down, you got a few generals around here, and they're fairly decent. This guy's not bad. This guy is actually, I would not trust him to tie my own shoes. His loyalty is pretty low there. Then if we look at your capital, you have a really nice half-stack army, some decent early tier units, including some exceptional units as well. You have Stefan the Great, he's a very good leader. I wouldn't grow too attached to him. So with Moldova and this mod, a couple of your leaders historically died or were assassinated at young ages, and there are scripts that offer you to relive that history, and if you accept, your leaders are killed and it goes to the faction heir. And there's a few of those in place for Moldova because, once again, this is a pretty terrible time for the Principality of Moldova. A lot of internal conflict and disaster. Now, of course, you don't have to accept those scripts if you want to keep your faction leaders, if you've grown attached to them. It's totally up to you. But yeah, this guy is a pretty decent commander of your forces. So yeah, you might want to hold on to him. And you can see that it's not the biggest city, but it is fairly built up. Not the richest, but it's okay, definitely okay. And it's got some good mines. If you build the mines, the roads, some farms, you can actually make quite a bit of money here from this settlement. And you also have the ability to train some elite troops right away, so that is very nice. And then moving down, you have a couple other settlements which aren't built up as nicely, but again, you kind of have to take what you can get. So down here, a couple just peasant archers, nothing too special. Over here, you have another very nice half-stack army. So just combining these two armies, that's a full-stack army, including some great units. And I will note that you have some Hungarian mercenary spearmen. They're a pretty good unit, but they are very expensive to upkeep. Just these two units alone, that's over 800 gold a turn. So what I recommend doing is, as nice as these guys might be, I would disband them, or maybe just go over to your eastern border and occupy these forts, because these forts or small settlements give you 1 free unit upkeep. So you got 2 forts, 2 units of spearmen. I don't know, it might just be a nice way to offer a little more security on your eastern border. And then you do have, so looking at these, looking at the population, 2,500 and 2,000, so not a lot. You can get a few nice troops from there, but it's going to take a while for these settlements to build up. And then you do have a castle, which you can get some other units. Oh, and you also have some more Hungarian mercenaries. So these guys are pretty decent as well, but again, 400 upkeep. So just in those 4 Hungarian mercenary units, that's 1,600 in upkeep. And if we look at our finances, we're okay, but that's a lot of money just for 4 units. And you can get better units, I would say, who at least have free upkeep. So that's obviously up to you, but that would be my recommendation. So that is kind of your homeland right here, these 4 settlements, but then you also have access to the Black Sea down here with another general here. He's okay. Then looking over here, this is a pretty good settlement to have, and that is because it starts off as a fortress, or let's see. Yeah, starts off as a fortress, it looks like. So you can get some nice units right away, and then you can also build it up pretty nicely. And probably most importantly, it gives you access to the Black Sea. So some nice trade opportunities as well as possibly expansion. So those are your 5 settlements, and then like I said, you do have a few forts, or minor settlements as they're called, dotted around here on your eastern border, on your northern border, and then I believe, yeah, there's one down here as well. So that offers some nice kind of first line of defense every way possible if you want. And then as far as agents, you got a couple. You got a priest he's got 4 piety, not bad. You start off with a pretty good diplomat. 5 diplomat is very nice. And then a spy and an assassin. So not the worst starting position, to be honest. Yeah, your settlements, they're okay. They can be built up pretty nicely, though. You start off with quite a bit of units, but there are a lot of threats to you. First of all, let's talk about expansion. There are not many rebel settlements in this mod, especially in certain areas of the map. Over here on the steppe, you do have a couple rebel settlements that could offer nice, easy expansion. Well, actually, I take that back. It's not easy expansion, but it's expansion that would keep you from going to war with other factions. So if we go out here on the steppe, there's a settlement here, but just looking at this, you can tell that it is a full stack army, and I want to say it is very decent. So that might be a tough fight, but it is right here on your border, so it's up to you whether or not you want to take that. It would put you next to the Principality of Kiev, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. We'll talk about that in a second. And then the other 2 rebel settlements I would say of note are down here. You have, I want to say, yeah, this is controlled by the Lithuanians, who unfortunately are not a faction in this mod, but they are, the rebels are supposed to identify as them. I guess I don't really understand, but there's a settlement down here. It's not a great settlement at all, and there are tons of troops that control this area. So to be honest, I don't think this is worth taking, at least in the first, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 turns of the game. For me, it was a very nice buffer between the Mongols, or the Crimean Khanate, I should say. I kind of just left it alone. There are a lot of rebel armies just kind of marching around here. You can see them up here. And it just wasn't worth it for me. It's not a rich region. Yeah, it can be built up, but that can be said about any region. The only other rebel settlements near you up here, but the Polish, they usually take it right away. You can see there's a full stack army led by the Polish king, and he usually goes right on up there. If you want to, you could sail across the Black Sea and take Theodoro. This is held by the Principality of Theodoro. I believe it was a small, like, Greek remnant here. But that could put you in conflict with the Crimean Khanate and the Genoese. And is it really worth it to go over here and fight a full stack army? I don't know. It's kind of up to you. So let's talk about your other neighbors. Like I said, to the north, you have the Poles, and they want your land. There's no way of getting around that. They're very interested. It's kind of a difficult campaign as the Polish. You have to decide where you want to expand into, being right up here against the edge of the map. And the AI usually decides to invade you pretty early on. In all my campaigns playing as the Moldovans, which is a few maybe, the Polish have attacked me within the first 10 turns. So be aware of them. They will come down and attack you, typically pretty early in the game. To the west, we kind of talked about them earlier, are the Hungarians. Now, they have a lot of troops right in here, right on the beginning of the game. The nice thing is, you have the Carpathian Mountains as sort of a buffer. There is this one mountain pass that they can come through, but they typically don't go for you right away. The Hungarians have a lot on their plate, and typically they're more focused on taking out the Wallachians or battling with them. So you have a little bit of time before running into the Hungarians, or what I like to do is ally with the Hungarians, and because the Hungarians start with such a large empire, they are usually very grateful for an alliance. And what I like to do is say, I will ally with you, but you need to give me this settlement here. And typically they are more than happy to agree to that. So not only do you secure your western border and gain an ally, but you also take this settlement right here, which is a very nice one on the Black Sea. It's pretty wealthy as well, and you do that without a fight. So that's what I like to do. To the south, you have kind of your brother faction, fellow Orthodox Vlachs, and that is the Wallachians. And they are about as strong as you, I would say. They start with 6 settlements, you start with 5, but I would say they're kind of your equals in every regard. And I have seen them go 50-50 between allying with Moldova and being enemies with Moldova. So in a way, it's kind of up to you. How do you want to help that relationship? Historically, Vlad the Impaler, he was supported by Moldova at times, but then he also had certain issues with them, we'll say, at other times. So again, it's kind of up to you. They start allied with the Ottomans, the Wallachians do. So that would be something to keep an eye on, whether or not that alliance stays strong or whether they go to war. Because typically, if the Wallachians keep their alliance with the Ottomans, they will expand north, and they will expand hard. So that would be something to watch out for. But if the Wallachians go to war with the Ottomans, then they try to expand to the south. And in that case, I might support them with their war against the Ottomans, because the Ottomans are also your neighbor. Now, there's not much right here on the border, and you do have the Danube, so kind of this aquatic wall between your two factions, and the nearest Ottoman settlement are down here, but they do try and push into your land. It won't be for a while typically, but they will come. Now the Ottomans have plenty on their hands, so you don't have to worry about them too much at first, but they are coming. At some point you will run into the Ottomans. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. But at the same time, this could be a really nice way to expand. If you subdue or ally with the Wallachians, all of Bulgaria is possibly open for the taking. You can sail armies right down the Danube, apart from this little bridge here, which is annoying. But you can do that and very easily invade Bulgaria. I did that with one of my Moldovan campaigns, and it was quite exciting. Now, to the east, you have 2 or 3 more factions that are sort of your neighbors, although you do have some rebel territory in between. Number 1, you have the Principality of Kiev up here. They start with 2 settlements. They are inferior to you in both how many settlements they hold as well as their troops. I would say Kiev has one of the weakest rosters in the game. It's not terrible. They do have some good units, but you can outmatch them typically, and they're not that strong to begin with. Plus, they are also at war with the Crimean Khanate. So typically, they won't bother you for a while. If anything, they will attack these rebel settlements or continue their war against the Crimean Khanate. And in a lot of cases, they just kind of turtle and don't do anything. Now, what I like to do with Kiev is actually ally with them, because they're one faction that have a pretty good standing with you right away. Actually, yeah, we haven't done this yet. Let's look at Poland. So your relations with Poland is terrible. With Hungary, it's actually outstanding. At this point in history, Moldova and the Hungarians were they were actually in agreement on a lot of things, because the Moldovans gave them Chilia and also helped them in crusade against the Ottomans. So you're doing well with the Hungarians. Again, a possible alliance could be in order. A lot of the Catholic factions you're kind of so-so with, because you're Orthodox Christian. With the Serbians, that's another possible ally. They are also Orthodox, and you start off very good with them. Let's look at some of the other factions that are closer. Principality of Wallachia, very good. Again, they are your ethnic and religious brothers. The Roman Empire, another Orthodox faction, very good. Let's see, who else? The Ottomans. Oh, you actually start off very good with them as well. That's nice. That typically deteriorates, though. And then the Crimean Khanate, very poor. You're at war with them. That is to be expected. Principality of Kiev, very good. And they are Orthodox. They are at war with your enemies. They're just kind of an obvious ally choice. And because you're probably going to be at war with few of your neighbors, I like to ally with Kiev. Anyway, moving to the south, we have the Crimean Khanate. And at first glance, they do not seem too strong. Just this one settlement and a tiny one-character army. But their main forces are down here in the Crimean Khanate. And you'll note that when the Crimean Khanate is played with the AI, they start with 2 regions instead of 1. And they start here with their capital of Kherm, and they have some really nice units there. Now, the Crimean Khanate is usually pretty slow in expanding, but they are powerful, and they will make some full stack armies with these 2 regions. How they afford that, I don't know. It is the AI. They do get some cheap bonuses. So you do need to watch out for them, but it'll be a while before they're a real threat. And the other thing is, because everybody hates the Mongols, if you want to offer a ceasefire with them, they typically will accept right away. You could even probably force them to offer you a tribute in return. So that's what I did in my campaign. I kind of left them alone, even though they are your traditional enemies. I wasn't really interested in expanding to the east, at least at first. And then down here you do have the Genoese colony of Kaffa, and that could be another potential ally. Actually, I didn't see, how do they feel about you? Okay, so they're fine with you, so that could be a nice alliance right there. And then we talked about down here the rebels at Theodoro. So yeah, those are your neighbors. I believe I covered all of them. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. My cat needed attention. So I don't really remember where I was. Anything else I wanted to talk about with the campaign map? One thing I would say down here, this settlement, Kronstadt, is one of the best settlements in the region. Not only is it very rich, but it is a citadel. And in this mod, citadels are very rare. If you know Medieval 2, let me see if I can open this up. No, it doesn't really say. So the way settlements increase, once they have enough population, they expand into larger fortresses. So if you look here, this is a castle. Once it has enough population, it can grow into a fortress. And when it does that, you'll have access to better buildings, better troops, better economy buildings, so on and so forth. And then bigger than the fortress, the largest option is a citadel. Now, some settlements can't build citadels, and the ones that can, it takes a ridiculous amount of population to get there. Typically, your campaign is going to be done before you can build citadels, so the best way to get them is to start with them or to conquer them, because there are a few dotted around the map that start as citadels, for example down here, but Kronstadt something like that, starts as a citadel, and it is right on your border. So maybe instead of allying with the Hungarians, you might want to just grab that, because the Wallachians typically try to get their hands on it as well. So that is something to keep an eye on. Then as far as other valuable settlements, these Polish settlements are actually pretty decent when it comes to economy. We'll take a look at that later. And Krakow, or Kraków, I've heard both, is one of the most economic settlements in the game. We'll take a look at that, but it is such a rich settlement. Definitely, if you go to war with Poland, I would suggest taking the fight all the way to Krakow. I'm sorry if there are any Polish people watching. I'm not entirely sure how to say this name. I have heard so many different pronunciations, so we'll just leave it at that. Okay, yeah, so very, very interesting faction here on the campaign map. You have a lot of possibilities for expansion. The thing I would be careful about is having a two-front, or God forbid, a three-front war. Excuse me, it's a little difficult to talk. It's pretty late at night. Yeah, so if Poland attacks you, if Hungary attacks you, if the Ottomans attack you, it is very hard to hold the line against all those factions, because you don't have the best military. That's just the plain truth. And before I get more into that, let's just go over to the battle map and look at the Moldovan roster. So let's go. Alright, so welcome to the battle map for the Principality of Moldova, and there are so many units that are available to Moldova, as well as all the other factions for that matter. The mod really does a great job of just having regional troops as well as mercenary troops. But we're talking about Moldova today, so I kind of broke this into two parts. First, let's take a look at kind of your core military of infantry and missile units, and then we will look at cavalry and nearby, I'd say, regional or mercenary units. Not all of them, there's just too many, but we'll take a look at the ones that are most nearby. So, beginning with your kind of low tier or lowest tier of infantry, you've got some peasant serf some peasant serfs. So these guys are pretty terrible, as you can imagine. They do have some nice bonuses: effective against armor, bonus fighting cavalry. So you could throw them into the mix to try and take out a few horsemen if you wanted to. But with an attack of 1 and a total defense of 3, they're gonna die pretty fast. Poor morale, they're gonna break very easily. A charge bonus of 3 is actually not horrible for a peasant unit. And they are also a unit of area of recruitment unit in Wallachian or Moldovan regions, so you can't get them everywhere. And they're terrible, but they're not supposed to be anything else than that, because they are peasant units, and you can see them here with their kind of farm instruments to be used for war. They're dirt cheap, but other than that, they don't have many pros. But again, they're not really supposed to. So let's move on to kind of your next militia tier unit, and that are these watchmen, an early spearmen unit. And you can see they have a little bit better equipment, some nice shields, some spears, and not much else, I guess. But let's look at their stats. Expert at hiding in woods. And I would say that is something that is very typical for Moldovan units. That is, you are kind of an ambush-heavy faction. You're very good at the defense. You're very good at hit-it-run tactics, kind of what it said at the intro. And as such, a lot of your units can hide in a lot of places. Some units, I believe, can hide pretty much anywhere, but these guys get the bonus in the woods. And then, as you can expect with spearmen, they get a bonus fighting cavalry, as well as a bonus in the woods, which is nice. They're used to the woodlands of the western steppe. And as far as their attack stats, attack of 2, charge bonus of 2 is pretty terrible, but they're early spearmen. You wouldn't expect much else. Total defense of 10 is also not great, but 6 of that is a shield, so it's not terrible. For an early spear unit, they're fine. Nothing more than fine. They do get free upkeep, which is nice, but I also believe, yes, they are an area of recruitment unit in Vlachian or Moldovan regions, but they are cheap early spearmen, so they kind of fill that role. Next up, we get to another peasant unit, but these guys are kind of interesting because they are polearm infantry that can form a spear wall. So, because in this game and this mod, heavy cavalry, or any cavalry for that matter, are so powerful, any way you can stop cavalry from decimating your infantry is very valuable. And as such, even though these guys are peasants and have pretty terrible stats, their sole job is to keep the enemy cavalry from charging into your ranks, and they do that fairly decently. Well, pretty terribly, but they're able to do it, I should say. They are militia though, so don't expect them to do anything else. They're not going to be taking the walls. There will be no songs sung about them, but they might be able to stop a few cavalry from charging into your more valuable troops. So as far as their equipment, they have an attack of 1, which with pikes, it's more of a 3, but still not great. Charge bonus of 3, that doesn't really matter because you want them in that spear wall. Defense of 5 means arrows and anything will kill them. But I do recommend recruiting these guys, especially in the early campaign. And if you need a way to, if you're fighting a cavalry-heavy nation, which you will be, that's pretty much the Polish, the Hungarians, the Crimean Khanate, the Ottomans, they all have great cavalry, so you're going to want some heavy spears. You can get them anywhere. However, with these guys, there is a scripted event that happens. I'm not sure when. I want to say it's around turn 40 or 45, somewhere around there. And what it does is it makes training these guys impossible because you get access to a better pike unit, which we'll get to in a minute. So you only have access to these guys for a couple dozen turns, but they're okay. For what they can do, I would say they're somewhat valuable, but again, they're a cheap peasant unit. I do love their look, though. I like these shields on the back, which unfortunately doesn't give them any benefit. The shield is 0 here, but I do love the look. So that's it for kind of your militia units. You do have a couple more, but they're a little slightly more specialized. So let's talk about these guys. I'm actually a big fan of these guys, even though they are also a militia tier unit. They're pretty good in certain regards. So let's look at them. These macemen, expert at hiding in woods, like a lot of your other units. Bonus fighting cavalry, effective against armor, and that is really valuable. So for being a peasant unit, who you look at these guys and they have no armor whatsoever. Although I think actually it says they have 2 armor, but really they just have some light cloaks on, if you could call it that. But because they have this 2-handed, wicked-looking mace, they can destroy cavalry in the melee. Now, they will die in the process. You will lose a lot of these guys, but there's 152 of them, and with that attack of 4, if you could get a charge in, that's an 8, bonus against cavalry, bonus in the woods, effective against armor, they can actually do a lot of damage. And because they're a militia unit, they are very cheap. So I like hiring these guys a lot, actually. Not as my main line of defense, mind you, but they're a great sort of support infantry unit. Now, they are militia, so they don't have great morale. They will rout pretty easily. I wanted to see if they were area of recruitment. Couldn't remember, but no. So yes, the other nice thing is that you can upgrade their armor. So you can kind of see here in the picture, they get some really cool looking armor if you upgrade them. So yeah, I'm actually a big fan of these dudes. They aren't perfect by any means, but for a militia unit, they can do some damage. So now we'll kind of move to your more professional soldiers, and beginning with these spearmen. First of all, just look at how awesome they look. I love their armor, just really nice. Even their small kind of shields look awesome. A few of them are wearing capes. That's pretty great. And then even their spears. I love this kind of bill hook on the side on a couple of them. Love how these guys look. The models for this mod are amazing. And also, if you haven't noticed, all the flags are also just, they're so unique. This mod just does not cease to amaze me. But enough of that. Let's look into these guys. So they are not militia. They are actually early professional, and because of that, they have good morale, which is nice. They can hold the line a bit further, a bit longer, I should say. They can form a schiltrum. They're bonus against cavalry, which is kind of to be expected. They're a spear unit, and they have an attack of 4 and a charge bonus of 4. That's actually pretty darn good for spearmen. Spearmen in this mod usually are around a 2, a 3, a 4. But for an early professional unit to have a 4 and a charge bonus of 4, that is not to be overlooked. That's pretty valuable. And then for total defense, they have a pretty decent armor, pretty decent shield. They're just a solid early game unit. They're not the best spearmen in the game, not even close, but they're pretty good. They're above average, I would say. And you don't want to rely on them too much. Again, they're not an attack unit. They're good for the defense, which is the name of the game for Moldova in a lot of ways. But yeah, I really don't have anything bad to say about these guys, other than they will struggle in the late game. But for the early and mid-tier game, they're pretty darn good, and they are also pretty cheap as well. And I believe you can upgrade their armor, but I don't remember. Possibly not. I don't recall. But then let's move on to your first sword infantry. Actually, your only sword infantry, I should say. And that is these guys. I'm not even gonna try to say most of these names, unfortunately. If I knew Romanian, I probably could do a better job, but unfortunately I do not. So these are, again, one of your early infantry units, and they're okay. I would say, yeah, it says here, average, and I would say that's exactly right. They are average. Now, you don't have any other sword and board units, as I like to call them. Well, as the Total War community likes to call them, sword and board, because of their sword and shield. You don't have any more of them, so this is all you got for sword and borders. And an attack of 4 is not too good for swords. Usually you'll see a 5 or a 6, and sometimes even higher. So a 4 for swordsmen is not exceptional. Charge bonus of 3 is very average. Total defense of 15 is okay. And yeah, I would say they're average. I would not rely on them, but they'll typically do their job. The problem is with Moldova is you're kind of average in a lot of ways, and your neighbors are usually much better. So the Hungarians have much better sword infantry than you. The Ottomans have far superior infantry than you. Your brother nation, the Wallachians to the south, I would argue they have better infantry than you, although only slightly. Really, the only people you have better infantry than are the Polish, although they have access to some really nice mercenaries. So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle with your infantry, and these guys are. They're okay. I love their design. I gotta say that. But other than that, I don't have too much to say positively about them. They're just very average soldiers. I might get some hate for that because, I mean, I love how they look. And you gotta take what you can get with infantry. But there's a unit I much prefer to these guys, who we'll get to in just a minute. But before we do, we need to look at your other pikemen, and these guys, like I said earlier, they are unlocked with an event that happens 40 turns or so into the game, and that are the Lancieri, or something like that, pikemen, and they're just a direct upgrade to your earlier militia pikemen. These guys are professional pikemen. They're still not great because being in Moldova, they're a little late to the game with the pike warfare, but with that said, they're okay. They can hold their own for a little while. So can form spear wall, bonus fighting cavalry, and good morale, which is very nice. And if we look at their stats, attack of 2 is meh, and total defense of 9 is not great. But all of that is in their armor and their shield. And you can see a lot of them are holding their shield on their left arm. So it actually offers some nice defense. And like I've said with all the other units, pretty much I love their design. Very, very neat. And, then we get to my 2 or 3 favorite units for Moldova. And first we get the dismounted Boieri, something like that. And these are your elite infantry units. They are your nobles fighting on foot. They are professional soldiers. They are superior quality, and they're just great. Effective against armor, excellent morale, and good stamina. And like I've said in all my videos, I believe stamina stats are rare to come by with this mod, so anytime it says good stamina or very good stamina, take note of that, because they will fight much longer than all your other units. So an attack of 6 is definitely respectable, especially since that's effective against armor. Total defense of 25 is pretty darn good. 18 of that is armor. Yeah, they are tanks, and that's pretty much it. They are feudal, which means that they're a little rare. It takes some time before you can recruit more of them, but they do have free upkeep and settlements with the appropriate buildings. They are expensive. I want to say it's 400 upkeep, maybe even more than that. So they are expensive, but what can you expect? These guys they're tanks. They have full plate armor. They look awesome. I really like these red robes over the armor. That looks pretty cool. I don't know if I'd want that if I was fighting as them. I mean, we all know no capes, but great unit. Definitely one of my favorites for this faction. And then Moldova also has a unique unit, and that is the Porter Guardsmen, and they're just an exceptional halberd unit. And looking at this, you're gonna want these guys as often as you can get them. Inspires nearby troops, a very good stat, almost like having a second general. Can form spear wall, bonus fighting cavalry, effective against armor. So yeah, like I said earlier, any unit that can stop cavalry and not only stop them, but like crush them in battle is very, very valuable. Excellent morale, good stamina. An attack of 9 is really good. And add on to that it's effective against armor and bonus fighting cavalry. If you can get these guys into the melee with enemy cavalry, they will shred them. And there's few things I enjoy seeing more in this mod, which sounds a bit morbid, but if you're playing this game, you understand. Total defense of 27 is great. 16 of that is armor. Obviously, they're not holding shields, but 27 means it'll take a lot to kill them. So the only bad thing about them is they're a little pricey. You can see over 1,000 to recruit. I want to say their upkeep is like 375 or something. They take 5 turns, I believe, 4 or 5 turns to recruit, so it takes a long time to get them. And you can only recruit them in your capital or the capital of the Wallachians because of your similar culture. So they are hard to get and hard to replenish, but it doesn't matter. They're so worth it. So moving on to missile units, we get to another one of my favorite Moldovan and Wallachian units. And I say that because a lot of your units are identical or similar to Wallachia's roster, which we'll get to someday. And that is these skirmishers. Now, you might look at these stats and say that's not great, and you wouldn't be lying, but there's a lot hidden with these dudes, even though it says they're only average. So first of all, they can lay stakes, and laying stakes is immensely valuable in this mod because, again, cavalry is king. So any way you can stop cavalry, which stakes do, is great. And they can hide in woods. They get a bonus against cavalry, a bonus in the woods. That's all very nice. They're very cheap. Recruitment cost of 400 is really cheap. Their upkeep, I don't remember what it is, but it is also cheap. Total defense of 11 is fine. It's not great, but for skirmishers, it's decent. Melee attack of 3 is okay, but a missile attack of 13 is very deadly because they hurl these javelins. So they can do a lot of damage, and you add that to the stakes, plus just how they look. I really love these guys. And you can upgrade their armor too, which gives them, where are you guys? They kind of get this armor, so they look awesome. And yeah, that's all I have to say about them. There aren't many javelin units in this mod, so when I get them, I love using them, and these guys they will typically not disappoint. So moving on to your more missile units. that sentence doesn't make sense. Let's just move on. You have access to some crossbowmen, and they're a decent crossbowmen unit. They're not bad, they're not great. Long range missiles is nice. Missile attack of 8 is kind of what you'd expect for average crossbowmen. Total defense of 15 though is very nice. Well, it's not very nice. it's average. So armor is 6, shield is 5, defense is 4. Yeah, you're an archer nation, not a crossbow nation. But with that said, it's nice to have access to both. And these guys, they're decent. They're just average crossbowmen. I like them a lot just because there are not, well, if you're fighting other steppe factions like the Crimean Khanate, these guys will actually do a lot of damage. So yeah, I do typically recruit these guys when I can. Plus, again, they look awesome, and they got these shields on the back, just such great designs. So yeah, I typically do like to hire them, but I do focus more on archers. So let's take a look at your archers, because as Moldova, that is one thing you are known for. So starting off with these guys, these are your kind of your regional peasant archers, and nothing to write home about, I would say. They have good stamina, which is nice. They can hide in long grass. You can see them doing that now, kind of kneeling down. Melee attack of 1, missile attack of 2 is just kind of garbage. Total defense of 6 is okay for peasant archers, but again, they're exactly what you expect. If you're looking for peasant archers, these guys are peasant archers. They're recruitable in Moldovan regions, so they are area locked, but they have terrible stats. They're dirt cheap though, so if you need them, there they are. And that's all I can say about them. I would much rather have these guys. These guys are one of my favorite archer units in the game because they are very just unique, I would say. Looking at their stats, it's nothing too special, but let's look a bit further. So good morale, good stamina, really nice, and also pretty rare for archer units. Typically, archers don't have great morale. They're not meant to. They're supposed to be behind your lines, but these guys actually good morale and good stamina, meaning they are professional soldiers. Long-range missiles. These guys have extremely long-range missiles. I want to say they have some of the longest ranged missiles of any archers in the game. They can outshoot pretty much anybody. And it doesn't really say that here, but I love that. I love being able to hit the enemy before they can hit me. Plus, they have a bonus fighting cavalry. These are an anti-cavalry unit. And unfortunately, they used to be able to lay stakes in earlier mods made by this team, and they did take that away, which I understand. You got to kind of balance that out. Wow, it is late, and I am losing the ability to talk. They do lose that ability, but still a great unit. Melee attack of 5 is really nice, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Missile attack of 5 is kind of average, but I'll definitely take that. Total defense of 12 is okay. Armor is 6. They don't have a shield, so other missile units can deal some damage to them. You will take casualties from missile fire, but because you can outrange pretty much anyone with these dudes, you can shoot them before they can shoot you. And then my favorite thing about them is their melee attack. So you can actually send them into the fray, which is rare for archers, and you can see they have this nice pole arm on their back, which they use in battle. So that means I don't know if it's effective against armor. I'd have to look into the game files for that, but it does get a bonus against cavalry. So one nice thing about them is if the enemy cavalry flanks around your lines and crashes into your archers, which is usually, well, it's always a horrible thing, these guys will pull out their pole arms and be able to defend themselves very well against enemy cavalry. And that, coupled with just their insane range, makes these guys some of my favorite archers in the mod. So you also have access to some other great archers. First of all, the Curtini archers. These guys are kind of famous among Moldovan armies and very feared for being exceptional archers, and they are definitely exceptional archers. And a missile attack of 6 is very nice. Melee attack of 4 is also really good, and I want to say it's an axe, which means it's effective against armor. Although, actually looking at them, it looks like it's a sword, so I take that back. But they have these nice Romanian-styled shields on their back. I don't know the name. Someone's going to correct me on that, and I appreciate that. And then typical Vlach medieval I said costumes, oh my gosh. Wow, how culturally insensitive. I'm just gonna move on. I apologize for that, but they are superior archers. I actually prefer the archers I just talked about over these guys, and the main reason for that is they have no armor. So missiles can just destroy them, and the shield is nice, but again, they're not holding it while they're firing missiles. So any arrows will destroy these guys. Yes, they are great archers. They're very accurate. An attack of 6 is devastating, but any sort of missile attack will wipe them out. They also take 3 turns to recruit, so it takes a while to get them. And they're a little pricey, not terrible, but yeah, just because of all that, I typically get other units, the ones we talked about, as well as one of my favorite Moldovan units, the Hunters of this. So these guys are amazing. One of the best archers in the game, I would argue. They are elite. Excellent morale, which is rare for archers. Very good stamina, which is rare for any unit. Long-range missiles, combat bonus in woods, can hide in long grass, can lay stakes. Just anything you would want with archers, they pretty much have. Melee attack of 5 is definitely respectable for archers. Missile attack of 6 is very nice. They have pretty good range. Charge bonus of 3. Total defense of 15 and 5. Armor, defense, skill, and shield is very good. And they're just excellent. I love using these guys to hold the walls, because not only are they great archer units that can deal casualties, but then they can also fight hand-to-hand on top of that. And I love their design as well, especially with these shields on their back. Yeah, recruit these guys whenever you can, because they will typically not let you down. And then we have 2 more missile units to talk about before we go on to the second portion of the roster, and that is these guys. Now, I put these guys in. You can't really recruit them, but they are mercenary units in a lot of your starting lands and neighboring lands, and I really love these guys. Now, their stats are, some of them aren't great, but actually, I take that back. I got ahead of myself. A melee attack of 6 for archers is very good. Missile attack of 5 is good. Total defense of 9 means they will die pretty easily, especially with missile fire. But they have good morale, good stamina, long-range missiles, and they can lay stakes. And any unit that can lay stakes is good in my book. Plus, their area of recruitment, but they have free upkeep in whatever area of recruitment they come from, and they're a great unit to put in your settlements as kind of militia because of this ability to lay stakes. So I put them in here. They're a mercenary unit, so I'll include them in later videos probably as well, but because you can recruit them from a lot of your home territories, I wanted to include them. And then you do get access to a handgunner unit, and these guys, I mean, I've said it before, any handgunner unit is valuable in this mod because they're so powerful, but as far as handgunners go, they're not the best. Good morale is nice, combat bonus in woods is nice, but they're very average. Total defense of 9 is pretty terrible, especially since 7 of that is defense skill. And the way defense breaks down is defense skill doesn't help at all against missiles. So typically that's the worst of the 3. It's still valuable, definitely, but with any missile units, you're probably going to be taking missiles in return, so you'd only really have a defense of 2, which is not great. Any sort of missile fire will destroy them, but they're handgunners, so their missile attack is 16, which is very deadly, and it also causes fear because it is a firearm, and just because of that alone, they're valuable. Now, any of your neighbors, all of your neighbors, have better firearm units than you do, so just keep that in mind. You might want to rely more on mercenaries when it comes to firearms, but they are available, and they're decent just because they're firearm units. And with that, let's move into another video which we can take a look at. Wow, it's so hard to talk. Let's look at the cavalry for Moldova. Alright, so we're back here on the battlefield, and I decided we're just going to look at the cavalry real quick and not go into the mercenaries and regional troops for now. I think I'm going to cover them when I cover the Cuman Khanate, or not the Cuman Khanate, wow, I'm a few hundred years early, the Crimean Khanate, and then the Principality of Kiev. Anyway, so let's look at the cavalry for Moldova. Now, starting off, we have the General's Bodyguard, and this is just a pretty solid unit. I mean, you can see by the stats. Inspires nearby troops, excellent morale, powerful charge. They are elite. They don't match up with their stats to their Hungarian, Polish, or Ottoman neighbors, so that is something to definitely watch out for. Their defense is significantly lower, but still they are a great unit and one of the best cavalry units you have, which is nice because you start off with several of them, obviously, with your generals. So attack of 3, charge bonus of 14 is excellent, total defense of 27. I mean, yeah, pretty standard when it comes to general units. Not as strong as their neighbors, but still definitely a force to be reckoned with. So moving on, I accidentally grabbed 2 of these guys, but one of my favorite units with this faction, I've said that so many times, and these guys are my favorite, or one of my favorites, just because of the way they look. I love their design, these round shields, their armor, and this is a really good medium cavalry. Now, they're not gonna do well against heavy cavalry. They're gonna have a hard time catching light cavalry, but that makes them medium cavalry, obviously, and they're pretty good when it comes to medium cav. So total defense of 17 is pretty darn good for medium cav. Attack of 3, charge bonus of 11, not bad at all. Excellent morale and powerful charge. Yeah, that's going to be helpful. They're a little expensive. I want to say they're like 350 upkeep or 315, something like that, but yeah, you might want to pick up 2 of these guys instead of 1 unit of heavy cav. It's about the same price. And these guys, yeah, I've used them quite a bit, and they haven't really let me down unless they're against other heavy cav. So just keep that in mind, but overall, a very nice unit. They're also pretty quick, too. A great flanking unit. Speaking of flanking units, here are 2 great flanking units, and we start off with the Light Lancers. Now, these guys, as their name suggests, are light cav, very quick, powerful charge, good stamina. Again, that's pretty rare in this mod, so very nice to have, excellent morale, and yeah, they're not the best just looking at these stats, but they're cheap, they're easy to recruit, and they have a devastating charge. 15 charge bonus can wreck pretty much anything. So even though their defense is low and anything and everything will kill these guys, their main goal is to crash into the flanks of the enemy infantry, I would say. And because you get 82 of them and of that 15 charge bonus, if you get around the enemy, they will cause havoc. And similarly, we get the Hansari, and they're kind of, let's see if it says, yeah, they're kind of made after the Serbian and Polish Hussars, and just another great light cavalry unit. That 12 defense will hurt them, as is the case with any light cavalry, but that 15 charge bonus is very powerful. So if you get these two units, use them to charge around and flank the enemy, and they will not let you down. Now, as far as heavy cavalry, you do have, I would say, two main options. Your main option, these guys you're going to be using a lot, and that is your noble cavalry. This is your go-to heavy cav, and an attack of 3, charge bonus of 18. 18 that's about as high as it can get for charge bonuses in this game, and that will crush literally anything except for maybe pole arms. And then a total defense of 26. That is actually kind of low compared to the heavy cavalry of your neighbors, but it still means that they're tanks. They're gonna take a lot of damage before they go down. And yeah, let's see. Inspires nearby troops is very nice. Excellent morale, powerful charge. They are superior for sure. And since they're feudal troops, they get free upkeep in the settlements that meet those requirements. You can recruit them pretty much anywhere once you build up your culture and your religion. And the only downside is it takes a little while in between recruiting them. So it takes some time to get a few of them. And they are expensive to upkeep, when we'll see more of that when we go back to the campaign map. But overall, a very great unit. Again, you just kind of got to watch out for the heavy cavalry of your neighbors, because you don't really match up to them. So you have to use hit and run attacks, ambushes, things like that to make up for your weaknesses. And then another unit, and I realize that there is a glitch here. We got some silver surfers, as they're usually called. So I'll have to talk to the team about that, reach out to them. But Polish Knights, these guys you have access to in some of your mercenary buildings, and they are just amazing. Great heavy cav. Total defense of 30 is really good. Charge bonus of 18, amazing. Excellent morale, powerful charge. They are elite, absolutely. Now, they are very expensive, but with heavy cav, that kind of comes with the territory. And they will not let you down for the most part. You just got to watch out for that price and this glitch, I guess. But a very good unit. And then you do have access to 2 horse archer units, and I'm a bit torn on how I feel about these guys, actually. So let's look at them before I talk. We have the border riders, and I will say I love their design. Really, really cool armor. I love their headgear and their shields. And so let's look at them. Good stamina, that's nice. Quality militia, so they are a militia unit, expert at hiding in woods. Melee attack of 2, not great, but it is a spear. So because they have this spear, they can actually do a pretty good job with the charge bonus of 7. Now, it's nothing like the 18 you would see with heavy cav or the 11 of medium cav, but a 7 charge bonus is still decent. It can do a lot of damage, and it's not normal for horse archers to have that option. So that's nice, is when they run out of ammunition, you can still get some kills with them. Now, the missile attack of 3 is not wonderful, but for an early tier unit, it's okay. Total defense of 7 is pretty low. 4 of that shield, 3 of that armor. meaning that any archer unit that fires back at them you'll lose a lot of dudes with that. So watch out for that. And yeah, I don't know how I feel about them. They're a good unit. They can charge, which I really like, but that defense hurts. And the other thing is they're a little costly. Well, I mean, they're not like the 500 or 600 of heavy cav, but I want to say they're like 180. Actually, now that I think about that, that's not terrible for a horse unit of 82. I take that back. Anyway, yeah, the big thing with these guys is that total defense of 7 and the low morale. I don't know, like, I do train them just because you do need horse archers to answer the Ottoman horse archers and the Crimean Khanate horse archers, but they're militia tier. It's kind of what you would expect with them. All right, and then moving on to your more professional horse archers. Again, I'm a little torn on them. So let's look at the stats. 82 soldiers is nice, and that goes for these guys too. That is a large group of them. A lot of other horse battalions, as you can see, have 62 or 52, so 82 is nice. Missile attack of 6 is very good for horse archers. Well, for any archer unit. 6 is very respectable. Melee attack of 5 is great. Charge bonus of 5 is okay. And I want to say it's armor piercing because you can see they have these axes on their back. So when they're in the melee or out of ammunition, they pull out that shield and that axe, and they're pretty darn good in the melee. Good stamina and good morale is very nice. Can form shooting circle, expert at hiding in woods, all good stuff. Yeah, quality superior. And so far, all of that looks great, but then you look at their total defense and it's only a 4, meaning that, yeah, they're going to get kills, but they're also going to go down really easily. Armor of 1, shield of 3. So, yeah, I like them. I like their stats, but any sort of counter fire, you will lose these horse archers very quickly. So typically I stay away from horse archers as Moldova, and I would much rather just have archer, like foot archer battalions to shoot back at the enemy. But still, they're okay, and I like them because they can actually fight in the melee pretty decently. Okay, so that is it for the Moldovan roster. So let's finish this video by looking at my most recent Moldovan campaign. Alright, so welcome back to the campaign map, and this is my most recent campaign. It is turn 77, 1467 AD, so still kind of in the mid-tier range of the campaign, and if we look at this, there are 252 turns remaining, so I have plenty of time. And I hold 28 regions. I need 35. I have all the regions, the regions in particular that I need to win. So my campaign is going pretty darn well. And I would say overall, this is one of the best campaigns I've played. I had so much fun with this. Moldova is a really good balance of, you have a decent economy once you build it up, but it's not invincible. So you do have to always watch out for your finances. Your diplomacy is always under threat, and there's pretty much constant war. It's definitely not a boring campaign. So, all right, let's take a look. The first thing I did was I gathered all of my armies, and as fast as I could, I traveled up here and took this rebel settlement. I wanted to have it instead of letting Kiev take it. And again, I don't know if I would recommend doing that, just because it's not the greatest settlement. It's just a small castle. I've built it up, but it's a pretty poor region to begin with, and it does offer you that buffer against Kiev and Poland to the north. But I decided to do it just because that's what I decided to do. I didn't really have any logical reasons. And then, like I said, right away, the Polish forces attacked me. And so I spent all of my attention against them, and I pushed Poland all the way back. And there were quite a few battles that were pretty key against the Poles, but I managed to pretty much wipe them out fairly quickly. And the big reason for that is, you can't really see it, but behind this city there is a site of a famous battle. In 1455, I crushed a huge Polish army as they were attempting to cross the bridge. So that was nice. And yeah, I kept moving to the west, and there were some difficult battles, but in the end, I crushed them and I took Krakow. And as you can see, it is a very, very rich settlement. This is a huge hub of my economy, 7,000 per turn. So, yeah, protect that with all you can. And I would say that's if the Polish attack you, wipe them out because you will make a lot of money. And then to secure my western border, I allied with the Bohemians. They hate the Catholics, and the Catholic forces were attacking me, so it was just a natural ally. Now, at about that same time, my alliance with the Hungarians fell through. Oh yeah, I should mention that. I allied with the Hungarians kind of right off the bat, and they accepted my alliance, and in return, they gave me this settlement, which was really nice because 2,300 is not wonderful, but it's pretty good for this region of the map. So a nice settlement to have, and you start with the settlement as we saw. I built these up nicely. They make quite a bit of money for me. I got swordsmith guilds in both these settlements, so having these recruitment centers on the Black Sea was very nice for the rest of the game. Anyway, so the Hungarians backstabbed me, and I pushed them back. I took these 3 regions from the Hungarians, and then they sued for peace, which I accepted, just because I really wasn't interested into pushing into Hungary at this point in time. They had some full stack armies just sitting around, and I didn't want to mess with it. I had other goals at that point in time. So I'm at peace with the Hungarians for now. I think we have a pretty good understanding. Yeah, reasonable. They might attack me later on, but if that's the case, I've got enough forces to hold them back until I can get my main armies there. So I've got enough right there to hold maybe one siege. And I'm not too concerned because I can train some really good units right away in all of these settlements. Then at that point, the Wallachians attacked me. So that was the fun thing about this campaign is as soon as one war ended, another war began, which was nice because thankfully I didn't have multiple wars going on at the same time. But first, it was against the Poles. As soon as that war was done, it was against the Hungarians. And then just moving south, once I was done with the Hungarians, the Wallachians attacked me. So I moved down and I took Targoviste and Bucharest right away. And they asked for peace, and I accepted. And then I actually offered an alliance with the Wallachians, and they accepted. So even though they are dead, their faction has been destroyed, we were allies for a long time, even though I did take 2 settlements from them. At that point, I was really starting to bump into the Ottomans, and the Ottomans, they wiped out the Wallachians, and then before they attacked me, I decided to attack them, because war with the Ottomans is inevitable, so I hit them with everything I had. I had a 3-pronged attack planned. I had an army come down through the Carpathians, and I took these 3 settlements, and you can see I don't have great troops now, but it's because all of my armies have moved to the east. But it would be enough to hold for a little while if they did attack, and I have a really nice army here, just in case, and also in Targoviste. And then eventually they sued for peace, and I forced them to give up this settlement. I have a nice army here. You can see it's very archer heavy, just to kind of protect my borders, and I'm moving a general down. But at the same time I was invading Romania, I landed an amphibious assault down here at Constantinople, and I took Constantinople without a fight, pretty much. They only had 1 or 2 units there. I took Pera, or Galatia, and then I also took Redestos. So I have a nice foothold here. I reclaimed this area for the Orthodox Church, and although the Ottomans are very powerful still, We are at peace for the moment, and I would like to keep it that way for maybe another 20 turns because they do have some really powerful armies right here on my border, and I'm busy elsewhere. So once that finished, again, this war with the Ottomans ended, and I decided to push east against the Crimean Khanate because they were going to war with my allies, the Kievan Rus. So right now I am fighting the Crimean Khanate, and they're pretty powerful. So there's a script that happens, I want to say around turn 60, 65, that gives the Crimean Khanate some powerful armies. That's all I'll say. And so they were able to push west, and they took Kiev from the Kievan Rus, and they have some pretty big armies up here. I'm kind of keeping an eye on them. I built up a little bit just in case, and they just took this little fort from me. I didn't put up a fight. I wanted them to take that so I could train more troops here. So my plan is to just hold in the north while I push in the south. So even though they're attacking here, I don't really care. I mean, if they take that, so be it. I can hold this settlement for a while, and then over here I've got some great troops, and I'm training some other good troops. So I'm just going to hold here, and then again, kind of like what I did with the Ottomans down here, I flanked them with an amphibious assault. So I took Theodoro, not a great army, but that's okay. I'm just trying to push the Crimean Khanate back as fast as possible, and we'll see how that goes. So a couple units, and then I also have a full stack army here as well. A much better force, so I think I'm going to take their capital, and then we'll see if they do have a lot of soldiers, but I'm pretty confident that we'll at least be able to take their capital because of the monster bombard that I hired. So yeah, I think I need, what do I need? I need 7 more regions. I'm almost there. I've almost won the campaign. If the Ottomans keep the peace, I'll be able to wipe out the Crimean Khanate, I think. That'll give me, what, 1, 2, 3 more settlements, maybe 4. And then maybe I'll finally push into Hungary, take a few more settlements, and win the game. And I might keep playing because I've had a lot of fun. Maybe liberate Bulgaria and unite the land mass under my rule. But yeah, a great campaign, a lot of fun. I do recommend Moldova. They're a really good faction. Their main weakness, I would say, is you just got to watch out for wars on all sides, because if that happens, your economy is not great. I mean, I've built it up a little bit, but you are not a rich faction. And a lot of your neighbors have better soldiers than you. So you have to adapt and be able to use troops against the weaknesses of your enemy. I mean, that kind of goes for any faction, but yeah, I would definitely recommend playing as them. I really enjoyed this campaign, so I think that'll pretty much bring this video to a close. So thanks for watching. If you are interested in history for the 13th, 14th, and 15th centuries, I do have a podcast called the Timur Podcast, and you can find the details for that in the description below. And in this podcast, I cover the life, conquests, and character and legacy of Amir Timur, or Tamerlane as he's often called, a 14th century Turco-Mongolian warlord and conqueror. And right now we are in the early 1380s talking about his invasions of Persia. So if that sounds interesting, check that out. Otherwise, you'll probably see me again in another week or so with my next faction overview. I'm not sure who I'm going to pick, but we'll see what campaigns I have ready. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good one.